Okay, so talking about standard form of the line, and we're discussing finding X and Y-intercepts first. And again, as a reminder what that means. The X-intercept is where Y is 0, right? That's where it crosses the X-axis. The Y-intercept is where X is 0. That's where it crosses the Y-axis. So make sure we keep track of that. One of those common errors I get on quizzes and tests is kids reversing that. So taking a look at the idea here then, we plug 0 in for Y, right? And just plug and chug, work it through. So we have 3x plus 4y equals 24. Plug in 0 for y, so 3x is 24, x is 8. So again, make sure we write out that form. That is 8, 0. That's the point. And something similar for the y-intercept, plug 0 in for x. 3 times 0 is 0, so 4y is 24, y is 6. So again, make sure we understand that that's 0, 6. That's what that point really means. Don't reverse that. So here we're going to actually find them. And again, as a reminder, I put it up top. x0 and 0y are the x and the y-intercepts respectively. So for this first one, we're going to plug in 0 for x. So we're going to say 5, 0 minus 6y. That's not a very good y. Minus 6y equals 60. And that means negative 6y equals 60. And then y is negative 10. And likewise, we'll plug in 0 for y. So we're going to have 5x equals 6 times 0 equals 60. And so we're going to have 5x equals 60. And dividing that out, x then is 12. So our x and y intercepts on this one. And similar story on the other side. We'll start out with 3 times 0 plus 8y equals 12. So 8y equals 12. So y then is 12 eighths, which does reduce to 3 halves. And we'll plug in, let me move this out of the way here. Oops, move this out of the way. There we go. And we'll plug in similarly 0 for y. So 3x equals, darn it, did it again. Plus, there we go, 8 times 0 equals 12. So 3x equals 12 divided by 3x then is 4. So our x and y intercepts here for the second one. So believe it or not, there was a point to finding x and y intercepts. It makes it easier to graph, right? So if I give you standard form right here, notice again, a is 1, y is negative, b is negative 2 rather, and c is negative 2. So again, remember the format is ax plus by equals c, and we can see each of the different letters here. So again, so a here in this case is 1 in this one, and b is negative 2, and c is also negative 2. Alrighty, so anyway, going back though, plugging in your, find your x and y intercepts. So you plug in 0 for y, right? And we just go back and we solve. And we plug in 0 for, there we go. Alright, 0 for y anyway, plug in 0 for x, and we solve both times, get our x and our y intercepts, and we just plot them. So again, the point 0, or negative 2, 0, and our point 0, 1, and just draw a nice straight line between the two of them. Next slide, we're going to use that to graph 2x plus 5y equals 20. Alrighty, so we're going to graph this again using the zeros, or the intercepts really. So we're going to have, so again, plugging in 0 for x and 0 for y. So we're going to have 2 times 0 plus 5y equals 20. So 2 times 0 is 0. So 5y equals 20. There we go. Divide out the 5, and y is 4. So I'm going to have the point 0, 4. And then the same thing, we're going to plug in 0 for y. So 2x plus 5 times 0 equals 20. 5 times 0 is 0, so 2x equals 20. X is 10, so we're going to have the point 10, 0. So once we have those intercepts, we can graph them. And you can see over here, if we go to the graph, I already graphed it for you here, obviously. So again, so we have 10, 0, that's out here, right? And then we have 0, 4, that's up here. These are going by 2s. And then just draw the line using a ruler between them. And you get the graph, again, using the intercepts. Certain lines, I do expect that you recognize them. I expect you to recognize that x equals 3 means that it's a vertical line at x is 3, and then y is everything. So I expect you to recognize that. You had it last year. We've obviously discussed it and looked at it this year. Likewise, if I have y equals 3, I expect you to recognize that's a horizontal line at 3, and x is everything. So again, all the points there. So 2, 3, 4, 3, negative 37, 3, right? All those points work. So it's an expectation. If you have to graph it, fine, but this is one of the most common errors I get of students is reversing these. And my expectation is that you pay attention to that and that you recognize that. So the got it, graphed on the next one here. You might want to pause here and do that real quick. So x is 4. Make sure we pay attention. That's going to be a vertical line at 4. X equals negative 1. That's going to be a vertical line at negative 1. Y is 0. Is technically going to be the x-axis, right? And y is 1 is going to be a horizontal line at 1 going like this. And on the next slide, you can see them. So again, here they are as we discussed. X equals 4. Again, vertical line at 4. Y is negative 1. I'm sorry, x is negative 1 is a vertical line at negative 1. Y is 0 is the x-axis. And y equals 1 is a horizontal line at 1, right there. And again, it's an expectation that you recognize that. One of my favorite parts of all this is transforming between the different forms of a line. And we'll have an entire worksheet, literally that's all you will do. I'll give you it in one form until you give me the other two forms. So here we have a line clearly in slope-intercept form, right? Y equals mx plus b. And I expect that you recognize that. That's slope-intercept form. And we translate that into standard form. And don't forget, I have rules for standard form, right? A, B, and C, right? The coefficients here and the constant are all integers. A is positive. A and B are not 0. Also, that all three of them do not have factors in common. So if this was 6 and 14 and 70, so again, pay attention here, 6, 14, and 70, that you would divide the 2 out to get 3, 7, and 35. That's a requirement of this. Standard form is a very standard form. So anyway, the translation here, this is where the algebra gets really fun in my opinion. First, we want to find a way to get rid of the denominator here. So whatever is the denominator next to the slope next to x, multiply both sides by that. And again, not just this, over here, the entire side. So we have some distributive property fun. So get 7y equals, and again, notice here we get rid of the 7, so negative 3x. 7 times 5 is 35. And then we move things around, moving the 3x over here by adding, leaving the 35 over here by itself, putting it in the proper order. ax plus by equals c. And again, a is 3, b is 7, and c is 35. And later on it's going to be important to know what a, b, and c are, but I'll leave that one up to later. And again, no common factors. Now, yes, 7 does go into 35, but 3 and they do not all share a common factor. Next slide, we're going to translate this one, which is in point-slope form, into standard form. Now, obviously, I have given the answer below here, but I'm going to show the work here. So we've got, starting out at the top, we've got y minus 2 equals negative 1/3 x plus 6, and I have to pick a number that's going to help me get rid of the denominator of the slope, and obviously I'm going to use 3, right? So multiply both sides by 3. Or we could distribute the 1/3 if you want to first, but I think it's just going to get uglier. So lots of things we can do here to start moving things around. And there's not one set order, right? You could add the 2 to both sides and then go through and multiply. any number of things. But I'm going to multiply both sides by 3 to clear that out first. So I'm going to have, we're going to have 3 times y minus 2 equals 3 times negative 1/3 x plus 6. And I'll tell you what I'm actually doing, kind of saving myself some distribution here on this one. I kind of looked ahead. I've done enough of these, I kind of know what I'm doing. You might have to play with them around, move them around a bunch first. But all right, so let's go and distribute that 3. So I've got 3y minus 6 equals, now notice here we're going to cross cancel, right? So you don't actually even have to distribute. So I'm going to end up with just a negative 1 outside of here. And we could have used a negative 3 if you'd have wanted to, right? Could have taken care of that in one shot. So that wipes that out. I'm going to distribute this negative 1 at the same time. So I'm going to get the opposite of x minus 6. Now, I do know I've got to move some other stuff around over here. So I need the x to move from here over to here. So I'm going to go ahead and add that x to both sides. So I'm going to get 3y plus x minus 6 equals negative 6. Now I want to get rid of the minus 6 here, so I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So I'm going to get 3y plus x equals, when I add 6 to both sides, I actually get 0 over here. We are almost in standard form. This x needs to be in front. So we're going to rewrite, and since addition is both commutative and associative, we're going to get x plus 3y equals 0. And you can see that's the answer the book gave. That is standard form. Please note, again on here, A is 1, B is 3, and C is 0. There are no factors common among all three other than 1. A is positive, right? And A and B are not 0. All rules for being in standard form. Okay, so here's where we can start using two variables in an equation. Not quite systems yet, but fun stuff. So it says a media download store sells songs for $1 and movies for $12 each. You have $60 to spend. So you can start thinking, oh, you could buy 60 songs, right? Or 5 movies, whatever. Or anywhere in between. Write and graph, almost anywhere. Write and graph an equation that describes the items you can purchase. What are 3 combinations of numbers, songs, and movies you can purchase? So, we have here the cost of a song, right, $1, times the number of songs that you're going to buy, which will probably be X, right? Plus cost of movie, which is $12, times number of movies, which is going to be Y, equals your $60. Now you can spend less than or equal to, but we're not worried about that today. You definitely can't spend more than, that's what you have, and apparently this is tax-free land. So again, writing a let statement, that is required in this. X is the number of songs you're going to buy, Y is the number of movies you're going to buy. So again, 1 times X plus 12 times Y, again, movies and songs, equals your $60. An equation for this situation, again, is X plus 12Y equals 60. Find the intercepts, and again, we should be good at that by now. You plug your zeros in, right, and you could buy 60 songs. So 0 movies and 60 songs, that's what this one says. Or plug in your 0 for number of songs, and we find you could buy 5 movies. So use the intercepts to graph, right? So here and here. And this one doesn't make sense to have negative this direction, right? Doesn't make sense to have negative down here. And again, only the points in the first quadrant make sense in this case, as we just discussed. And the intercepts give you 2 combinations of songs and movies. Use the graph to identify a third combination. So again, we know we can have 60 and 0 or 0 and 5. And you could pick anything in between, like 24 songs and 3 movies. The intercepts give you 2 combinations of songs and movies. Use a graph to identify. And then check for reasonableness. You can't buy a fraction of a song or a movie. You're going to go, I'm going to buy half a song and then part of a movie, and that's not real. That doesn't happen. The graph is again a line, but only the points with integer coordinates are solutions. So anything else in between doesn't matter. So ones like here, like 12:4, right? That matters. 24:3, that matters. 36:2, right? 48:1. 60:0. Not the stuff in between, because you can't buy part of a movie or part of a song. Alrighty, so here we're changing the same problem a little bit different. Instead of $12 for a movie, it becomes $15 for a movie. Songs are still $1. So our equation changes. It's still going to be that 1x, because x is number of songs, right? $1 per song. Plus now, though, it's $15 for each movie, up to your $60. So that's where we got the equation from. Obviously, your domain, again, your inputs is non-negative integers, right? Because you're putting in, number of songs you're going to buy. And you cannot buy songs that, you can't buy negative songs, right? So 1 through 60 is going to be your domain. Your range, though, changes a little bit. You can still buy 0 movies. You can now, though, only buy up to 4 movies. And I got that because I plugged 0 in for x, and I find that I get 15y equals 60. And when I solve, then y then is 4. So the max I can buy is 4. So your range is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 in this case. Alrighty? Alrighty, bring it back around one more time. This idea of forms of a line, right? We have the slope-intercept form of a line. We have the point-slope form of a line and standard form of a line. And this is all the three are the exact same line and graphed over here. So, again, your y-intercept here, right? Y equals mx plus b, that's 0, 6. Come over here and take a look. There we go. We also have standard form, and you can see both your zeros if you were to plug in 0 for x, right? And 0 for y, and you'd get those 2 points there. And then point-slope form, any point along the way. This one, they use the point 3, 4 right here. Could have used 0, 6, could have used 9, 0. Anywhere else that happens to cross perfectly. So I do expect, and we're doing this very soon, that you can translate between each of these forms of a line. That is pretty much the point of this entire thing, and that's really the algebra part of this.